Are you considering getting into short-term rentals? Remember, you will be entering the hospitality business, and it is highly competitive. A lot of hosts are upping their game in terms of guest experience in order to improve their business. My guest today is Mark Lumpkin from STR Cribs, who specialize in renovation and design for short-term rentals. Their clients are seeing up to 40% higher average daily rates and 64% more occupancy. So let's see how they do this. Well, hi, Mark. It's great to see you again. Thanks for coming back.
Yeah, thanks for having me back, Mindy. I'm always excited to chat with you about short-term rentals.
Yeah, I mean, you guys are at the cutting edge of this. It's just why I love hearing from you. It's so inspiring to see what you're doing, and I'm excited for everybody to see some of the stuff. If you're able to
Yep,
share a few things today, that would be awesome.
definitely. I have a couple projects pulled up and I'll definitely share my screen and we can look at some houses together.
Okay, perfect. So maybe give us a little bit of background in terms of where you are based out of, what geography you cover in terms of clientele, things like that.
Yeah, I say just a quick little background on the company for anybody who's listening who hasn't heard any of our previous ones. I'm with STR Cribs. We are a construction company, licensed general contractor in about half a dozen states, and we have an in-house design firm. We focus exclusively on high-performing short-term rentals that are in the top 1% of each of their markets. And we've been doing this for about 5 years, set up a little over 500 STRs. It's been a crazy ride. We've really seen the transition from what used to work to what is required now to earn a buck in short-term rentals and to stand out and be competitive. And so, as far as the markets that we're in, we typically are in the top STR markets, right? Florida, Arizona, Texas, the Smoky Mountains, the Poconos, the Carolinas. We're highly focused on the areas where there's a lot of tourism and a lot of people traveling to, and we've also done some smaller stuff around different areas, but that's mostly where we're at.
Yeah. So remind me, you're based in Florida, is that
I
right?
am, yep. Northwest Florida for me, just in the Panhandle.
Okay, that's cool. Awesome. And then the states, just so we can get is it around Florida instead of in Georgia and the North area? Do you do California? Just to give us an idea.
Yeah, we've done a few out in California. It's obviously a massive state, and so we've done stuff in Big Bear. We've done stuff. We actually had a property featured on a TV show not that long ago. Where was that at? Palm Springs. So we did
Uh-huh.
one out in Palm Springs that was featured on a TV show, which was really, really fun. Had a hidden speakeasy, and I can actually show you guys that property. We'll check that out too today.
Okay, that'd be awesome. Well, going back to what you said about what is required now, I think that is the key to this conversation, right? Because it's the game has changed. We can't just, open up a house, throw some IKEA furniture, and just kind of hope that it works for guests and guest experience, right? And so tell us, in your words, what is required now for hosts or people that are new thinking about getting into short-term rentals?
Yeah, I mean, I think the problem is that when STRs first came out, or not when they first came out, it's obviously a relatively new industry, but 5, 10 years ago, you could just get a 3 bedroom, 2 bath house, throw some IKEA furniture in it, slap it up on Airbnb, and you'd be booked out all the time because people's options were your house or a hotel. And if you're traveling with a family or you're traveling with a group of 2 or 3 people, you got to go get, 2 or 3 different hotel rooms and you start adding that up. You're already spending 5, 600 a night if you're a couple $100 per room. So it made sense to get your own house, which really was a great thing for the travel industry. I'm definitely can't knock that. The problem is the supply has definitely increased. There is a lot more competition just in sheer volume in most markets. And then the level of homes has increased as well. And so if you try to make that same investment strategy today that you made 5 or 10 years ago, you're going to get absolutely crushed and you're going to have a hard time getting bookings from these platforms because what they're doing is they're prioritizing the properties that get a lot of views and shares and looks, and they're pushing those up in the algorithm. And so if I go to any city in America and I look at Airbnb on page one, all of those houses are magnificent. If I go to some cities, I could get down to page 5, 10, 15, and still have amazing, well designed, well amenitized homes. And so if you come to the market with anything less than that, you're just going to be at the bottom of the barrel and you're going to be getting bookings solely based on being the dirt cheapest property. And you can't compete with hotels. You just can't. So I don't think that's a great game to play.
Mhm. So what is required now is really more of a strategy, more of a, would you say it's more of a theme or a real kind of design that's distinctive?
Yeah, I think you actually said it perfectly. The word is strategy. It doesn't have to be themed, right? Maybe the strategy is theme, but somehow figure out who the guest avatar is and who your property needs to be set up for. Who's the optimal guest? And so if I have a one bedroom cabin in Smoky Mountains, Tennessee, 10 miles from the breweries and the distilleries, I can guarantee you that I'm going to get a lot of older couples traveling to that market that are traveling alone to my cabin because I've only got one bedroom and they're doing the couples retreat, the couples getaway. So if I know that's my target demographic, I need to do everything possible to make sure that my listing is optimized for that group of people. And so that might mean an amenity like a hot tub or a barrel sauna that a couple could really enjoy. That might mean higher end linens and robes and a great coffee bar and things that a couple would enjoy traveling to and enjoy using. However, if I've got a property in Phoenix, Arizona, and I've got a 4 or 5 bedroom house and I'm right next to the golf courses, well, maybe bachelor themed property is the ideal for that demographic and for that market. So maybe I go the themed route and go a golf themed house with mini golf and all the fun stuff that a bachelor group of guys would enjoy taking advantage of. It's just really about finding yourself in a niche and drilling down on it.
Mhm.
Don't come to the market with just a generic house that you say, "Oh, I don't want to." We hear this a lot. People say, "I don't want to over theme my house," or "I don't want to niche down too much." But if you don't niche down on a certain demographic, you will be tossed out to the wolves and you will be like, "Oh, I'm available for everyone." And then no one wants to stay in your house because it's not optimized for anyone.
Hmm. It makes so much sense. I love it. And especially we know that the photos are so important, right? I mean, so you create the design, but then you get the photographer in, they capture it, and that's how you get the bookings through a great listing on Airbnb, Verbo, etc. So
Correct.
I think
Photos are the most important thing. I would say that. The
yeah.
photos are hands down the most important investment you can make in your property. And I've seen people spend $600,000 to buy a house, $100,000 to renovate it and set it up, and they made a $250,000 down payment. They spent all these exorbitant amounts of money, and then they refused to spend an extra $1,000 to get a professional photographer out there and thought they could save money with their iPhone photos. I think it's a terrible idea, and I would say priority one is great professional photos that are staged. And if I could I actually share my screen so we can drill down on photos a little bit?
Actually, Mark, please do. And maybe even talk about do you think about the photos when you were thinking about design? Like, is that kind of one of the things that you consider?
Absolutely. How will this photograph is one of the top questions we ask when we are making design decisions and when we're installing amenities, right? Oftentimes, how this photographs is more important than other things. And I'll give you a, a perfect example. In Florida, we have those pool cages, right? Those big
Yep.
pool cages that go over pools.
Hmm.
They're they're nice to have. They're a great safety feature. They keep the leaves out of your pool and make it easier to keep clean. They keep the bugs out in those summer night months. However, they photograph terribly.
So
And so
true.
oftentimes those
Yeah.
you can't that aerial shot of your backyard with your pool looks awful when you have a pool cage over the pool. And so we'll oftentimes get rid of the pool cage, even though the benefit in day-to-day operations and in honestly in guest satisfaction is probably a little bit higher by having a pool cage. Because it photographs so poorly, it has to go because we know that photographs are how you get booked and how you get make your
Wow.
business.
I never thought about that. That is so interesting. But yeah, it makes sense.
It's crazy. So here, let me share my screen. Please don't mind all the tabs that I've got up.
Yeah.
But I wanted to show a few things. So one, I wanted to show a photo shoot that we've actually just finished recently. And I wanted to talk about just the details in the photo shoot. So, one, something as simple as making the dining room table and staging this table with plates and things like that. Uh, Drilling down on the very small features like the chess game. These type of photos. These are photos where people can envision themselves creating memories and having a good time with their family using your amenities that you have. And if you didn't photograph this amenity, it would have been a wasted amenity because people wouldn't have known that you had it until you got there, right?
Yeah.
Something as simple as like the pool table and making sure that the pool table is set up, or bringing in some lemonade and things like that. The
I love
charcuterie
this
board,
backdrop
wine.
too. That did you get that specially designed and painted?
Yeah, yeah, we did a custom mural for this client. They're
Oh,
in Tampa Bay,
cool.
Florida, obviously.
Yeah.
Um, I don't know if there's a picture of it. Yeah, right here. Even this. The name of their house is built into the design, right?
Wow.
And the Wi-Fi code is there, and just really strategically thinking through the decor. And to me, this is the difference between a great property and just an average property. The average property owner would go down to Ross or something and get just a photo of a bear or a mountain lion or whatever, a couple of flamingos, and throw it on the wall. And you'd be like, okay, yeah, there's some decor there, but it's not intentional. And so something like this can be a very intentional piece of decoration that helps people remember the house that they were in, gives them the Wi-Fi code and password, and is just really kind of a dual purpose piece of decor, right?
Hmm. Can you talk a
So
little bit about the photographer? Because, oftentimes people get real estate photographers in. It looks like you've got more of a lifestyle slant on this. Is it just a matter of getting the right photographer, or are you putting together a shot list of things you specifically want?
uh, yes and yes. So yes, I would recommend not using a real estate photographer and using an STR photographer. There's quite a few good ones out there. I would ask, if I'm vetting a photographer, to see other short-term rentals that they've done, and then two, photography guide. I'll actually share that with you, Minnie, for completely free. It's a
Oh,
80-page
great.
photography guide. I'll give it to you. You can drop it in the show notes, and
Fantastic.
people can have access to that. That it's a great way to ask those questions. Hey, can you do photos like this? Can you do this? Can you do that? Can you make sure lights are on? Can you open curtains and blinds? I see that so often. A bedroom is so dark, and it's because they've got the curtains and blinds closed, and it just doesn't photograph well.
Mhm.
So to me, this is, in today's industry, this is the bare minimum. This is what you have to do in order to compete. I'm going to show you something that's next level, okay? That's even better than this.
Go for it.
So, you talked about lifestyle photos, and I want to dive into that. One, we're going to look at this aerial shot. If this house had a pool cage on it, this backyard would not photograph nearly as well. And so that's where, when we make decisions, we ask, yep, how's it going to photograph? Okay, that's very important. Um, we've done lifestyle photos in this one, and let's see if we can find them. There you go. You've got the kids playing pickleball using those outside amenities. And if I'm traveling with my family, I'm like, oh yeah, that would be so cool. I wouldn't even think that my 4 and 5 year old would have fun out there playing pickleball. But here's these little kids playing pickleball. I've got the photograph of the extras, right? Not just the pickleball court, but I want to show that we've got basketballs for you, we've got volleyballs, we've got paddles, we've got all the equipment that you need to have a good time. Um, Something as simple too as like the mini golf. Let's make sure that they know that we've got putters and balls for them, that the lights are on, that the string lights are on, that we've edited that to show that it's like, give you those pink and dark hues in the background on the sky time. And so we're really taking these photos to the next level because we understand and realize that it's the most important part of this house. And if we didn't spend the extra money and the extra time to really do these photos well, we would have almost wasted all that previous time and energy before we launched the property.
Yeah. What are you finding people spending on photos these days?
A few $1,000s.
Okay.
I would say anything less, and you're just setting yourself up for failure. And I know people are going to go, "Oh my gosh, that's crazy. What are
Yeah.
photos for $300?" Well, you're advertising for essentially nothing on the platform, right? It doesn't cost you anything to create a listing on Airbnb or VRBO, and you don't pay until you get your bookings in. But your entire marketing strategy is your photos.
Yeah.
So that would be like a company being like, "Oh, I don't want to spend a couple grand to advertise my product." Well, then no one's going to know about your product, or they're not going to know it's as good as it actually is.
Yeah, absolutely. I would love to hear from you about amenities and we often hear about hot tubs and pools and they do increase occupancy rates. Is that your opinion, or what are the other things that people need to be thinking about?
Yeah, there's definitely not a black and white answer to this question. There's not just a tried and true, yep, you've got to have this and this and this. It's very market and property specific, and even more, it's guest avatar specific. So it's who's coming and staying. Okay, what does that type of traveler look for? And I would say every market's different. In Florida, I'm not a big fan of hot tubs, and they don't seem to make that big of a difference. And as a Florida resident, you and me both are. There's 8, 9 months out of the year where the last thing you want to do is go sit in a hot tub. You
Mhm.
just walk outside, you're in a hot tub. Um, so, but if I'm in the Smoky Mountains, or if I'm in Breckenridge, or if I'm in a ski resort town, hot tubs are going to be a huge amenity that will definitely drive revenue and will increase your ADR. So I definitely think that there are certain amenities in certain markets that do better.
Mhm.
Um, but something is better than nothing, right? At the end of the day, if you look at your market and you look at the first page of houses, the top performing houses, whether you use an AirDNA or Rabu or any of these available tools, find out who's performing the best and look at the amenities that they have. And then find out who's doing 20 or 30% less revenue than those houses in the same size homes, same 4 bedroom, 2 bath. Look at who's doing 20% less in revenue and see what amenities they have. And that's going to kind of give you an idea of what the difference is and what those amenities are worth.
That's a great point. I love that. When we're looking at pools, I was just curious because obviously you've got a lot of pool homes over where you are. What about things like container pools and like some of the, plunge pools and different pool types that you could consider as an alternative to a hot tub, for example?
Yeah, the if you do them strategically, they can be really, really cool, right? If you've got a property that you incorporate that container pool into the design and you take great lifestyle photos and you make it an experience, it can be an awesome amenity to have that can drive ROI. However, if you don't make it an experience, it can be a weird, awkward, they tried, but they didn't try hard enough. You know what I mean? It
Yeah,
can,
can you elaborate on experience for people so that we all understand what you mean?
okay, so I've seen I've got a perfect example. I wish I had the images to show you, but I don't. But I've seen a container pool thrown in a backyard, buried in the corner from the manufacturer, filled up with one photo that says we've got a pool. And that's not great. I've also seen a container pool brought in, placed properly in the yard, had a muralist come in and paint the whole thing pink with a pink flamingo mural and da 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 da.
Oh,
Then
cool.
they hung string lights around it. Then they took amazing professional photos with people jumping in and out of the pool. Then they had a little lounger area with a deck built alongside of it so that you could go in the container pool and then get out and sit on the deck and relax. They took that container pool and they created an experience
Mm,
by designing it, adding cool lights, building a deck and putting a seating platform for you and taking great photos. That's the difference. Both people paid 50 grand for that container pool.
yep.
One person spent an extra 10 grand to build the deck, do the lights, paint the mural, da 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 da. They spent an extra 20% and probably doubled or tripled the value of that amenity. And so to me, that's what it is. It's the whipped cream and the cherry on top. If you could
Yep.
put it no other way, it's the two ice creams come to you. They cost exactly the same amount for the ice cream man to make it, but one guy put whipped cream, sprinkles, cherry, and drizzled a little chocolate, and he gave you such a better feeling in your heart and soul about the quality and about what you got from them
Yeah.
versus the other guy who just scooped a couple of ice cream, threw it in a bowl, and handed it to you. Same product, same cost for the vendor, but one is just taken to such a higher level and we perceive it as so much more value.
That makes so much sense. I love that. Um, so with the so-called downturn in Airbnbs that people are talking about, right? I mean, a lot of these are Airbnbs that are not what you're talking about. Have you seen an uptick in people kind of reaching out, trying to reimagine their space and figure out what do I need to do?
Yeah, this is my funnest thing to do. We call this pimping my crib. You remember that old TV show, Pimp Your Ride?
Yeah,
Where they take their old crappy car and they bring it into the shop and they soup it.
right.
It's the same car, but when we're all said and done with a fresh coat of paint, new wheels and tires and stuff, it looks completely different
Yeah.
and performs completely different. We do the same thing for Airbnbs. We've seen a definitely an uptick in the last couple of years of people saying, hey, my revenue is on a steady decline. I made this much in 2021. I made this much in 2022. 2023 was here, and 2024 was my worst year. I said, okay, well, have you changed anything? Have you updated your property? Have you added any new features or amenities? And you look at it and they haven't. And so we are seeing a lot of hosts and property owners come to us and either ask for ideas or help. Always happy to give either one. But at the end of the day, there can be a huge amount of money to be captured, and you can definitely kind of add jet fuel to your listing by coming in and doing a refresh. And for everyone that looks a little bit different, it can be very simple. A fresh coat of paint, a coffee bar, spend a few $1,000s here on some new pillows and some new linens. That can make a big difference. And other people are going in and going all out and saying, I need to take this thing to the next level and I'm willing to spend a lot of money. So it just depends on what you have the appetite or budget for. I don't think it's ever a bad idea to reinvest into your homes, and I think it will always pay you dividends.
Absolutely. What are some of the case studies that you can share? One of the things I found interesting actually on your website is some of the claims that you make about increasing occupancy rates, increasing ADR, which is amazing. Could you maybe speak to a case study where that happened, and what you did?
I definitely can, and I do want to find this address here and share my screen. So give me just a second. I want to actually show you a property that we did in Scottsdale, Arizona. Let's see if I can find this one. Give me just a sec. I've got the after photos, so I just want to find the before photos. Let's see. Sorry, I wish I had this pulled up.
But I love how you're able to sort of quantify, because at the end of the day, it's a business, right? It's about results. And one of the ways we look at results in short-term rentals is average daily rate, right? And that multiplies into your gross revenue. But then we look at occupancy rates. And these are the things that, as a real estate agent, I get asked about when we're showing these short-term rentals, right? The investors want to know what it's making and what the occupancy is. So knowing some of these design trends and what's successful is really helpful for them to imagine what it could be.
Definitely, definitely. And the two also are not necessarily mutually exclusive, right? They're not always the same thing, right? Your occupancy rate and the amount of revenue you make. Oftentimes, some certain properties with lower occupancy rate make more money. Because what you've got to consider when you have those really high occupancy rates is that you do have higher cleaning costs, you have more turns, you have more wear and tear on your property. And so a fully booked calendar does not always mean you're optimizing your property and that you are maximizing the amount of money that you can make with that property. So I always like to kind of throw caution to the wind when people talk about that, where well, property at 100% occupancy might be doing worse than a property at 70% occupancy. And that's really an interesting thing to think about because our brains don't think like that. We think that,
That's a great point. Thank you for bringing that up. Yeah.
yeah. So I want to show this one because this was an existing short-term rental when the client bought it. And these are the listing photos that you see. They bought it with everything in it. So this is the backyard, okay? It's not horrible. It's got a pool, it's got a little mini golf, got a little bocce ball court. Those are not terrible amenities to have. It's got
Mhm.
a hot tub kind of tucked there hidden in the corner. Um, and the inside is decent. It's not a horrible house. It's got a pool table. It's got adequate seating. Sleeps a lot of people. Kitchen's not great, not horrible. Big living room. And this property was doing somewhere around $100,000 to $115,000 a year prior to this owner buying this property. Okay. The thing that this house is missing is a few things. One, it's just missing heart and soul. It doesn't wow you. You don't get excited and go, oh my gosh, I can't wait to go on a vacation in this house. It's decent. You're like, yeah, it's okay. Okay. And so what we did was we came in and we actually utilized a lot of the stuff in here, which I think is really, really interesting where people are like, hey, do I have to throw everything away? Do I have to um sorry about that.
Oh, this
Do I
is
have to throw everything away and start from scratch? No, I don't. So
yeah.
let's look at these two backyards. What we did differently. Um, we still have that bocce ball court. If you saw that in the first photo, right? That
Yeah.
bocce ball court was Not terrible. We didn't gut it. And we still kept the mini golf course. We still kept the putt-putt. What we did do is we took way better photos. We got rid of that hot tub out of the corner. We moved it to a spot where people could see it and know that it was there. We added a pickleball court because that's a really high amenity. Um, we themed the house. That was a big thing. So we themed the house on the inside and then added some additional amenities to the backyard that people would enjoy. So it became a golf themed house. Um, we did a driving range in the backyard, so guys that are coming for golf bachelorette parties can hang out, can hit their balls, can do the driving range. We took empty corners like in the backyard and did a fire pit and did a mural and really created a moment and a space where people can hang out and have fun. And then on the inside, we did some updated furniture, some decor. So you look at this living room, right?
Mhm.
This living room can now sit 12 people, 10 people, which is in line with the guest count. The living room before sat what? I don't know. Let's find a photo in here. You got one couch and a chair. You're getting four people in this living room to watch TV. That doesn't seem very comfortable for a big group traveling to Scottsdale on a trip. This screams, we're going to hang out all night, eat popcorn, watch movies. There's seating for everyone, right?
Yep.
So
That's
it's
great.
crazy how furniture can transform a space. We still use the same pool table. We just repurposed it, took a little better photo, put it in the other room. We flip-flopped. We took this that was the living room, made it the pool table room. We took the room to the left of it that was the pool table room, made it the living room. So really just space planning made a big difference. Same table, just staged. A couple of benches to increase occupancy, a new light, a fresh coat of paint on the wall, and some decor. Same pieces, just a totally different experience, right? And it's crazy how it's the whipped cream and the cherry on top just makes such a big difference.
Yeah.
Let's see if I can find that dining room at the same angle. This is the dining room before. This is the dining room after.
Hmm.
Drastically different, but essentially the same. So, kitchen, same thing. Fresh coat of paint on the cabinets, couple of new appliances, and really transform that kitchen. And then to me, the biggest difference is the theme, right? We took an empty garage in this house and we turned it into the ultimate golf themed poker room. You've got the TVs, you've got the shuffleboards, you've got the video game arcade games, you've got a bar for people to hang out at. And so this house with almost the same furniture, right? These bedrooms have the same furniture in them. We didn't even get rid of the furniture. But this house doubled its revenue in its first year live. So it went from making 100 to 110 grand a year to 200 to 220,000 to 220,000 a year. And the property manager said it's their top performing property in the entire Scottsdale market. And they want more of them. But they just have got to convince their owners to go from this to this.
Hmm.
And it's not that big of a difference. It's the
So
same
this
furniture.
is great, Mark. Let's use this as an example, this particular room. You're basically just adding color and a few decor elements, really. I mean, that couldn't have cost the owner too much money to do that.
No, this is something that people could DIY themselves. The
Yeah.
problem is most owners stop at this because they think this is enough, because this was enough 5 years ago.
Hmm.
Oh, great. We got a bed, we got nightstands, put a little decor on the wall, and I took a nice little photo. It's not a bad photo. And I got the towels and throw blankets. They thought this was enough because it was enough. But today, it's not. This is what you need. You need the color, the
Yeah.
accent walls, a decor that matches the theme of the house is a golf themed house, not just random decor. Little end table, couple new lamps, and a rug. This room is completely transformed. Probably for less than if you went and did this yourself, you'd spend a few $100s in paint. You'd buy a rug from Rooms to Go or from Rugs USA for $150.
Yeah.
You'd be all into this room for less than $500, and that's the difference between a top performing room and a room that's just eh.
And going back to those photos, when you're photographing that room and it's on Airbnb, people are going to be captivated, right? At least more than it was. And it's
Definitely.
going to be a clear decision where they want to stay.
Definitely. So I think that's a great, yeah, and I love this case study because to me it's just incredible that someone could use a lot of the same stuff they had in the house.
Yeah.
It's an existing short-term rental, so we have history on how much money it made. We added a garage conversion, which obviously is which is a big addition. We added a pickleball court, which is a big addition. But other than that, we mostly just refreshed, updated, and repurposed a lot of the stuff. And they made all their money back in their first 12 months of operating. And now they have a property that's in the top, that's back at the top of the list, right? They're no longer at the bottom fighting for scraps. They're back at the top. And people that are coming, the group of guys that are coming on a golf trip, they want to stay in that house and they'll pay the price to stay in it.
And they're probably going to come back, or at least,
Of course they are.
use social media, and their friends are going to say, "Where did you guys stay?" It kind of starts to market itself after a while.
Absolutely. Gonna leave great reviews. We had an awesome time. This was such a great house. Da 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 da. Da. That's a 5-star review every time, right? The previous house was a 3 or 4 star review, and maybe you get someone who's nice, leaves you a 5, but people aren't raving about the property as it was before. They're raving about it now, and that's what you need.
Yeah, absolutely. Can you give us a sense of what the investment was to do this redesign on the house?
Yeah, so the redesign really wasn't that much. Like we talked about, those rooms were relatively light lifts to update them. The expensive costs on this one were the permitted garage conversion and that pickleball court. And
Mhm.
so I would say this was a 6-figure investment in this property. However, we've seen that they doubled the revenue by over 6 figures in the first 12 months. But you don't have to spend that. You could pretty easily go DIY your property and do some paint and some, like we said in that room, and make a huge difference.
Yeah, absolutely. It makes a huge difference. And I think it came from the guest avatar, right? And then you came up with the theming, the color palette, because you use a lot of green and the orange, right? It seems to be that you've now branded that destination with those colors.
Absolutely. And they're also colors that pop really, really well when you're looking at a small picture on your phone. And so
Hmm.
that's another thing that we often think about and that people don't think about, which is most folks are booking their short-term rentals through Airbnb or VRBO on an app on their phone.
That's so
And so
true.
it's a small photo too, right? And so if it's not bright and colorful, you're not looking at it on your 65-inch TV in your living room. You're looking at it on your 8-inch TV in your hand. So you've got to really go bold because the photos are so condensed on the phone.
I love that. We don't think about that. We've got to think about how the guest is actually doing the bookings. And you're right, most of it is on the phone. So it makes total sense. I'm curious because you're so entrenched in this business. Where do you see the future? If you could like look at 5 to 10 years in it ahead of time, I mean, do you see what do you see that's going to happen with Airbnb and
Yeah.
short-term rentals?
Yeah, I think that it's still going to be a great business for mom and pop folks to be in. I think that there's a lot of talk about there like, oh, the huge companies are coming and they're going to take up the market share and Hilton and Hyatt are going to come in and own all the Airbnbs. I don't think that's going to happen. I really think that it's such an interesting industry because we think about it as this huge industry, but it's really not. It's very local and hyper local focused. And so what I mean by that is you're in St. Augustine, you guys have a completely different short-term rental market than you've got in the Panhandle where I live. And you've got a different guest demographic and you've got different sizes of homes and different backyards and different regulations. And so it's so hyper focused. I don't think that we're in any risk of having these huge companies come in and take over. I think that's great for just normal people like us, where we can create a great business, generate a lot of income, build long-term wealth. So I'm excited about that. I would say that the people, in my opinion, who are going to really succeed are those that get hyper focused on a niche. And so this is crazy to say, but I saw this guy the other day on LinkedIn and he has a bunch of adult only kind of romantic cabin getaways that are a little bit tacky and a little bit weird and something I would never stay in, but he's got a niche and he's crushing it and he has these 10 cabins that just absolutely go crazy and berserk as far as revenue goes because they're so unique. Or there's the person that's got the Hobbit huts. I don't know if you've ever seen the little Hobbit huts from Harry Potter. Like no one else can compete with that. People are creating destinations and experiences. And I think if we do that and we think about that when we invest in short-term rentals, we're going to all have a lot of success for a long time to come.
Hmm. Absolutely. I do feel like, there's people in short-term rentals that will exit because they realize that they don't want to really be in the hospitality business or really take that property to the next level like you're talking about. And so it might make more sense for them not to invest in this design, right? And to switch it into a long-term rental, pad split, or whatever may be the investment asset class is. But I think that this is so inspiring for people that really do want to be in short-term rentals and see a future in it, right? Because it is a great business. It's a lot of fun. It's a lot of, good interaction with the guests. I personally love it. I've got my tiny house here, and it's great, and it's themed, and all that stuff. So yeah, it's really exciting. And I think if you have a creative mindset, like you do, obviously, but if as a host, if you're creative, it can be really fun coming up with these designs.
Agreed. Yeah, and I love that you've got a tiny house because I love tiny homes for short-term rentals. They're just so unique and fun. People love staying in them, and you know, they don't cost $5,000 a night. You don't have to get a huge group of friends and family to split the cost of this giant property. It's something fun that, small families or couples can do. So things like that, right? If that's your playbook and you're doing something like tiny homes or you're doing something like beach cottages or whatever, that's just a little different than the typical 3 bedroom, 2 bath track home in a neighborhood with 1,000 other 3 bedroom, 2 baths, you're going to have a hard time competing in that space. So I think you're right. If that's that person's mindset, they should definitely go midterm rentals. They should do pad split. They should do long-term rentals. And I like to debunk this because I used to hear all the time people say, well, buy the property to set it up as a short-term rental. And if it doesn't work as a short-term rental, you can always fall back on it being a long-term rental. So underwrite the deal. I don't know if you've heard people say this. Underwrite the deal as if your revenue was from a long-term rental,
Yes,
but then
yes.
hope for short-term rental revenue.
Uh-huh.
I think that's a terrible idea. The problem with that is if you don't go into a property thinking that this is going to be a top performing short term rental, I'm going to hit this guest avatar, I'm going to have these amenities, I'm going to have this design, I'm going to really go all in on the hospitality aspect, which is what you talked about.
Mm.
I'm diving into hospitality. If you don't think like that, I think a lot of people just ended up in a bad spot where they didn't think about the hospitality piece and they thought about it as I'm a real estate investor. In short-term rentals, you're both. You're a real estate investor and you're a hospitality operator. You own a hotel. And I don't think people think about it like that. They don't think, oh, I'm going to own a hotel. Well, you do.
You're absolutely right. And as I'm talking to clients or customers that want to get into this space, I really encourage them to think through what it means to be a host. And you can have a management company, manage the day to day and everything like that, but ultimately it's your business, right? And the management company can only do so much with your asset. So having walking into it as a new owner and seeing it with the kind of eyes that you do, right? I mean, looking at the opportunities and taking that step back and figuring out who is the guest avatar, which is, we talk about that on these calls because you can no longer wing it, and it needs to be a little bit more strategic. So, no, I appreciate everything you're saying, Mark. I think this is absolutely right on, and there could not be a better time to talk about this because we are seeing a shift. Even here in St. Augustine, there are short-term rentals on the market, and people are just ready to get out and to switch over into something else or cash out, right? And then buy a different investment property.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Yep. I think that it's such a fun industry. There is so much opportunity. You just have to be in the right mindset and you've got to think about it the right way. And I think everybody can be successful, right? I don't think you have to go have this mega property with hundreds of thousands of dollars invested in it. I think if you just create great spaces that guests want to travel to, that you can do really, really well. And so, yeah, thank you for having me on. It's been really, really fun to chat about it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Well, just in closing, is there anything else that you want to share today that would be beneficial for us?
No, I feel like we talked a lot of stuff. I hope I didn't over talk. I hope I didn't ramble
No,
on
it's
too long,
perfect.
but there's just so much to talk about. And I feel like we hit on some of the important stuff, the great photos, the unique experience, whatever that looks like for your property, and really diving into the hospitality to me are the most important things.
Yep. Now, if people want to work with STR Cribs, what is the way that I mean, how should they go about getting in touch? And what's the first step usually with a new host?
Yeah, so feel free. I'll drop my email in the chat,
Mhm.
and feel free to just reach out to me and say, "Hey, Mark, this is where we're at in our journey. We're looking at properties in this market, or we own this short-term rental. What do you think we could do with it?" And I'll give you my honest and free advice, which is, "Hey, I think you could do this, this, and this to your property to improve it," or, "Hey, I like that house. I don't love this house. Here are the reasons." So I'm always happy to give free advice, and yeah, feel free to share my email in the show notes, and anyone can reach out to me.
Are there some houses that are more of your scope? I mean, we're seeing a lot of these larger homes like in Arizona. Is that more what you do, or could you accept any type of property?
That's a great question. There's no black and white answer to that. I always like to look at any property. There
Okay.
are certain ones that yes, it just doesn't make sense financially for the owner or for us to dive into projects together because they're too small. But that doesn't mean we don't have some great referrals. We do work with some great local designers in certain markets that we can't help people at. And so, really, I would say just don't let that stop you from reaching out. Just reach out, make the email. Our team will get back to you and we'll give you some ideas and some thoughts. And we're really of the mindset that the rising tide lifts all boats. And if we can make everyone's experience as guests better with better properties, that those guests are going to become repeat clients. They're going to stay on these OTA platforms. We want people to get away from hotels, come stay at short-term rentals. They're way better. And so, yeah, we just want to help as many people as we can, Mindy.
Okay. Well, I really appreciate your time today, Mark. I will put all your details in the show notes. If anybody wants to reach out to Mark, I really encourage you to do that. And thank you so much for your time. And I'd love to have you back another time. We'll do another check-in on what you're thinking.
Thanks so much. Maybe, yeah, we'll do it another 6 to 12 months down the line and see how things
Yeah,
have
do
changed and
some
see
of
what
your
our
new
predictions
stuff.
are like and
But
see
I'm
where.
inspired. I'm now thinking about my next short-term rental. So I'm inspired by what you've shown us today. That's very
Yeah,
cool.
cool. Thank you. And we definitely got to get you out to that property in St. Augustine once it gets all wrapped up
I
so you can
would
see it
love to see
firsthand.
it. Yeah, absolutely. Awesome.
Cool.
All
Thanks,
right.
Mindy.
Thanks so much for joining me today. If you got something out of this video, I would love it if you could like and subscribe to my channel. If you are on Facebook or Instagram, you can find me at Invest with Mindy, and I look forward to seeing you next time.